What is your problem? Cat just comes tearing through here like a lunatic. You a big bitch to have the zoomies. I see them. Do not attack Vera. Do not. Don't. I love my kitty, but he is naughty. Welcome back to my channel. It has been a hot minute since I have done any NewTubers, and I apologize for that. There's been a couple of reasons why. I will tell you those real quick. Number one is that I went to go do it and the list was so short that my video was going to be less than 2 minutes long, and because of that, that will just fuck up my whole YouTube everything. And people actually don't watch these videos. So, for that reason, I'm going to add other content on after all of the names and everything, so please watch that part of the video as well. It's not just going to be the NewTubers here, but I do have a hell of a list this time. I believe this is episode 4 of AUTHORTUBE NewTubers for 2020, so I hope that you enjoy it. Also, if I have missed anyone, please let me know. If I get your name wrong, if I get what you write wrong, please understand that I am doing my best. It is in no way personal. It is that I'm an idiot. So if you're offended by me being an illiterate idiot, I apologize. So maybe don't watch. And you can still go click on all the links down below and go subscribe to all these people's channels. So there's a whole bunch of different people with a whole bunch of different genres. So I'm sure you can find something in here that you are interested in. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and jump into it. Once again, I'm going to go through the people who I have some idea what they write, and I'll run through them and tell you what they write. And then at the end, I've got a few that I don't know for sure what they write, and I'll pop those up together so that they have a little more time with their name on screen. Michelle Schusterman does ghostwriting. She also does contemporary realistic, dark fantasy, and paranormal. My Novel Less Life writes poetry. Sophie Snow is open to anything. Erin Lee writes horror, psychology, and fiction. I believe I had to get Erin's information from her Goodreads page, so if that's not 100% accurate, I'm really sorry. Welcome to Reality writes short stories and poetry. Meg Writes writes short stories, YA, fantasy, and dystopian. Dana Lau writes fantasy. Bella RNC writes action, adventure, and fantasy. Molly Jane writes thriller, YA, mystery, and paranormal. Harul Stokes writes fantasy and sci-fi. With Mia writes dark fantasy dystopian. Jen Brightly writes YA dystopian. Emily Oliveri writes speculative fiction, high fantasy, paranormal, horror, and dark fantasy. Antiguan Writer has a massive list, including fiction, poetry, nonfiction, coming of age, romance, contemporary, YA, children's, and fantasy. Santiago Sedano writes fantasy, mystery, thriller, and dystopian. Four Eyed Media LLC writes poetry. Jamisa D. Brown writes YA, sci-fi, fantasy, NA, and has written romance. Eric Fenn writes fantasy, steampunk, and solarpunk. Jessica Karanthke, I don't know that that's how she said that. I tried, y'all. Jessica writes fantasy, sci-fi, and thriller. Rock Winter Records writes contemporary romance, sci-fi, fantasy, and paranormal. Self-Righteousness writes genre fiction, fantasy, and humor. Maya Lemaire, who you may recognize by name because she has had previous channels, writes children, young adult, and new adult. Samantha Wicker writes fantasy, adventure, paranormal, romance, sci-fi, short stories, and epics. Rebecca Jones Howe writes neo-noir, horror, erotica, and romance. Boring Story Things writes romance. Books by Bailey writes poetry, general, sci-fi, dystopian, and romance. Nova Journal, I'm guessing that one, writes lesbian fiction, magical realism, paranormal, and fantasy. So that's the list of people that I have some idea what they write. Again, if I got it wrong, please let us know down below. It was a mistake. It was not personal. I'm trying my best here. But we do have a short list of people who I don't know for sure what you guys write, but you should still go check out their channels because that doesn't really tell you whether or not you're going to like somebody anyway. So give them a shot. Right or Wrong, J. Lee James, Haley Spence, E.N. Chafin, and Allison Blackwood. Okay, so that does it for the list this week. I do want to just reiterate to everybody that I really want us to give a good welcome to all of these people, because it's really important to expand the group of people that we're interacting with every day. When we interact with a new person, we get a new point of view, we hear a new background, we hear new things that make us a more well-rounded person and a more well-rounded writer. We can identify more with people if we engage with different types of people. And for that reason, I think you should really go check all these channels out. Whether or not you subscribe, totally up to you. But you should give everybody a chance. Some of these channels are going to be something you're absolutely not interested in, and that's okay. You might not want to watch someone who's a pantser if you're a plotter, or you might not want to watch somebody who swears if you're a person who's not comfortable with bad language. Those things make us all different people. But knowing what's out there and knowing what options there are is very helpful. Also, every time you engage with a different writer, you may hear about a little piece of what they do that is different than the way you do it. And that may give you some idea, whether or not it's the same thing, it may lead into some idea that helps you do your job as a writer better. And I would think we would all want to get better as writers. So I think building up our arsenal of different ways we can attack different problems and different ways we can write different things and things like that are very helpful. It's also really nice right now to see that we've got a group of newer people who are popping in here, who are making new friends and things like that during this whole big social distancing mess. We as a community here on YouTube and AUTHORTUBE specifically can really minimize some of the loneliness we might start to feel by being stuck at home all the time, by saying hello and making a little friendship with some of these people. Whether or not you guys get to be BFFs, just having someone else who you can identify with in some way might be helpful to you and or them. I think it's also important to remember that when we first start out, it's really discouraging to see how slowly numbers rise. It's hard for people to find your channel when you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 subscribers. It gets easier as you get higher. About 100 subscribers, I think I start to see people pop up into my feed. But I don't see many people who have 7 subscribers popping up in my feed without me looking for them. And for that reason, that's why I've done these lists. I also think it's really important to remember that every single one of us has a different process, but that doesn't mean that you can't learn something from someone else's process. But we don't know what we're going to learn from a new writer, and just because you don't think you're going to learn something from someone because they just got here doesn't mean that you can't. Number one, you don't know how long they've been writing, and number two, everybody has a different process and different things work for different people. And while something might not work for you today, in 6 months or even 6 years, you might run into a problem and you go, oh, I remember this girl that I met on AUTHORTUBE said that she dealt with that this way. Let me give it a shot. And that may be the thing that makes the difference for you. So please try to see who you can connect with here and give them a couple likes. Tell them I sent you. Or don't. You know, whatever. There's a couple people here who don't have comments engaged. That shouldn't mean that you can't watch their channel. Do keep in mind that smaller channels sometimes will have more drastic issues with their production value, but this can come from a number of places, including the fact that why would you spend a bunch of money on something that you might only do for a month? So I fully understand why you might not invest in a greater production value. My production value isn't great. I still haven't invested a ton. I've been doing this for 3.5 years. So, but I do want to say you should give them a chance. Even if you end up just not being interested, at least you gave it a chance. Remember that people gave you a chance at one point, no matter if you have 10 subscribers or if you have 10,000 subscribers. People have stopped and listened and given you a chance. And so if you have the time, if you have the inclination, it'd be great for you to give them a chance as well. We're all human beings, and we're all in this kind of holy shit time together. So try to make sure that you're keeping that in mind. If people seem particularly agitated, if some channels are producing way more and some channels are producing way less, keep in mind that different people deal with this kind of stuff differently. So some channels are just going to start putting out tons of content because that's how they cope with the agitation that is the world around us. And other channels are going to freeze up. Try to give them the benefit of the doubt. If you're going to unsubscribe from somebody, maybe go check their Twitter, see if they're around, check their Facebook, things like that. See if they're around and maybe they're explaining why they're not making videos right now before you go unsubscribe from somebody you would enjoy usually, but they just don't have it in them right now. I also wanted to make sure that I extend the offer to everyone on the list that I do live streams on Friday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. If you let me know a little bit ahead of time, I can get you set up that you can come join us on screen. Otherwise, you are more than welcome to join us in the comments always and forever. I love to have new friends in both places. If you're interested, just hit me up. Twitter might be the best place to really hit me up because I tend to check Twitter more. And I forget when people Facebook message me, so sorry. Anyway, so yeah, I'd love to see you guys there. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Thank you so much for considering these channels and going and checking them out. Like I've said before, all of these channels have under 100 subscribers, so they are all going to really benefit from just one little click from you. So we'll see you guys all later. Have a wonderful week and good writing. Bye.